set plus 32-inch TV, just $9.99. Find similar great buys on King Coil, Serta, and Simmons that include a 32-inch HD TV. Plus, get your mattress delivered the next day. Now through Tuesday at the Rooms to Go store-wide mattress sale.
ABC Action News is taking action for you.
There are others out there who are willing to help.
Getting your community to join in.
2 days later, everything changed.
Resolving your problems.
It was made simple by a phone call from ABC News.
I'm just extremely grateful to ABC.
We actually saw your story on ABC Action News.
Log on and let us help take action for you.
You're moments away from an hour of television that may save a life.
It's about turning tragedy into triumph.
That is when my life began to change.
Domestic violence affects 1 in every 4 women. It could happen to your mother, your daughter, or you.
I knew I had to go.
We'll show you stories of survival, strength, and hope. It's an ABC Action News special taking action against domestic violence, and it's just moments away.
He had a gun, and he started shooting me.
Domestic violence can happen to anyone. Race, age, or gender, it does not matter. We are on a mission to make our community safer and help victims find a way out. Tonight, you'll hear personal stories of survival.
If I would have stayed, even as tough as I think I am, I probably would have either been hospitalized or he would have killed me.
We'll take a closer look at men in the movement.
The true man can stand up on the foundation of his own goodness.
And advocates in action.
If you raise your hand today and say you are a victim of this crime, they need to call the authorities.
Plus, we'll take you behind bars to find out, can abusers really change? Taking action against domestic violence Primetime starts right now.
Good evening, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Lisa Campos, Director of Community Affairs. Domestic violence isn't easy to talk about, and it's even harder when you're trying to do it on TV. In most cases, the victims are scared, survivors are embarrassed, and even non-victims have told us they wouldn't know what to say if someone they knew might be a victim at home. But our campaign aims to change that. When victims, survivors, and advocates break the silence of abuse, they are helping others break free as well. We've all heard that saying that knowledge is power. Well, tonight we'll show you just how true that is. Keep in mind, though, that what you're about to see are real-life stories of abuse, and they may not be suitable for children. We begin with a statewide domestic violence hotline working around the clock to help victims of domestic violence. It's 1-800-500-1119, operated by the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence. It will link the caller directly to the shelter nearest to them. They reported a 25% increase in calls during last year's campaign and a jump of 100% during last year's Primetime special. Tonight, you'll see that hotline number on your screen throughout the entire program. If you're a victim of domestic violence or know someone who is, please call for help. It's 1-800-500-1119. Joining me for this Community Affairs special are ABC Action News anchors Wendy Ryan and Brendan McLaughlin.
Tonight we'll introduce you to the many faces of survival. We'll take a closer look at the roots of domestic violence and how together we can break the cycle of abuse. And we'll give you some simple ways you can make a difference in your own community.
And tonight you'll meet advocates in action, strong women and men, including survivor Elaine Carroll, who takes us through the traumatic abuse she suffered as a child and the defining moment that made her choose a life of helping others.
We'll also introduce you to men in the movement. Crisis Center CEO David Broughton shares his personal story of surviving abuse. Plus, you'll meet Ricky Roberts of Pinellas County, a young man who leads a local peacemaker program for children caught up in domestic violence.
We're incredibly grateful to all the survivors who are part of our campaign this year. Among them is Kathy Haley, one of the many faces of survival.
I read the offense report on the new charge.
In her line of work, Kathy Haley has heard every excuse.
I really didn't do this. She, made me do it, or she actually hit me, and I just was, trying to get her off me.
She's a Polk County probations officer specializing in domestic violence cases.
I say, come on, let's face the facts here.
Kathy Haley has been a probation officer for more than 20 years.
A career almost derailed early on, though, when Kathy herself was arrested, of all things, for domestic violence.
I stabbed him, but not very hard at all. I just was scared.
Kathy's double life was about to be exposed. The attack happened during a beating from her own husband.
I'm a probation officer. You know, this can't happen to me.
It did. For 3.5 years. A probation officer by day, a victim of domestic violence by night. It was Kathy's secret life until September 1992, when husband David said he would kill her.
And I heard that, and I was like, thinking, you're going to kill me? Why would you say that? And I said, you wouldn't kill me. And the next thing I know, he came up to me and started punching me in my face repeatedly. I remember seeing blood spurt this way from my nose, and I knew that I was in trouble. I looked on the counter, and there was a knife set. I took a knife up, and just thinking, holding a knife up to him, he would back off of me and leave me alone.
He didn't, and she stabbed him in self-defense. Deputies responding to the scene would arrest them both for battery. And 10 days after getting out of jail, he tried again, hiding outside her family's house until Kathy came home from work that night.
So when I got out of my car, I didn't know he was there until I saw him come around the side of the garage.
She ran, he followed.
And he started shooting me. The first shot got me in my right arm.
The second bullet?
That bullet hit about right in there.
The third, her leg.
I fell on the driveway, face up on the driveway. I'm thinking in my mind, please, I hope he ran away. He came over, stood right over me, pointed the gun right at my head. I saw the barrel of the gun and I just squinched my eyes, knowing he was going to shoot me in my head.
He missed. That fourth bullet hitting her abdomen. Her husband saving the last bullet for himself. Kathy survived, but lives life in a wheelchair ever since.
I was kept around for a reason. And to me, that is to help other victims.
Almost 18 years later, the details of that night are still crystal clear, and that's fine with her.
And you see, back then, cell phones were kind of big, so it almost didn't fit in my pocketbook.
You see, the Kathy of today uses those details, the crime scene pictures, her story, to help victims of domestic violence and the batterers.
Even though it's gory and not pretty to look at, anything, I tell you, it doesn't matter to me if it gets through to them.
Where Kathy's pictures and words fail, her wheelchair does not. Rolling into court each week, she assures batterers they can change, urging victims to leave when they don't.
The best part of my job is seeing someone either get out of a violent relationship and move on with their life, or the abuser actually get some help, and I've had both.
Again, the statewide domestic violence hotline is 1-800-500-1119. If you're a victim searching for a way out, please call. Trained professionals are standing by to link you to nearby shelters and resources. Statistics show us just how widespread the problem is. 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime. Those stats are coming directly from the National Coalition on Domestic Violence.
And 1 in 33 men have experienced a rape or attempted rape. What causes someone to become abusive? We take a closer look now at the roots of domestic violence.
It's about power, it's about control, and it's about somebody feeling entitled to have power over somebody instead of sharing the power, if you will.
That, in a sentence, is CASA Director Linda Osmundson's working definition of domestic violence, a crime that affects 2 to 4 million men and women, straight and gay. And like other social ills, it is a progressive problem.
Every time it happens, the next time it's going to be more difficult, more serious, often more frequent. So it's important that we respond early on in the situation rather than waiting until it becomes lethal.
Domestic violence can be as physical as any stranger assault and as deadly. Over 2,000 American women are killed each year by their current or former male partners. Police will tell you that domestic violence can be as physical as any stranger assault on the street. In fact, some 2,000 American women were killed last year by their current or former male partner. Yet the violence is just as often psychological, with cruel put-downs, mind games, and threats of physical violence, including suicide.
That may sound like it's not necessarily dangerous to the victim, but it's a huge red flag for me because in many cases, if he's suicidal, he takes somebody else out with him. So he's going to take her and the children with him when he kills himself.
Abusers often take control of their partner's money, their transportation, and their children, leaving them virtually powerless.
We still see a greater number.
Forensic psychologist Deborah Day says it's critically important for abused people to have a safe place to hide outside the home, a person they can trust, and a way to get a message to that person if they feel threatened.
The other kind of safety plan is having a spare key hidden somewhere, having a spare car key, having some money, having some clothing, having your birth certificate copied, having those important papers in another location.
Through most of our history, culture, custom, and the law supported a man's right to exert force against his wife. That started changing in the 20th century, but sexism persists in advertising that objectifies women, in the marketplace that pays them less than men, and at home where the traditional role of homemaker is often valued less than the breadwinner.
It's how we portray women and how we regard women in general in our society really becomes the root of domestic violence.
The hope is that domestic violence will decrease as women advance in equality and leadership in our society. We sat down with a former public defender who spent years leading the domestic violence unit in Hillsborough County. Attorney Chris Regano shares his thoughts on what the legislature needs to do to protect victims.
What I think that the legislature now needs to do is they need to expand the definition of domestic violence. They are doing that on an annual basis. They are including things now like cyber stalking. Now they're going to probably include, I think that it will be the next step, they'll start including things like voyeurism. There's a lot of problems with video voyeurism. You'll see that on the news where people are filming not only their neighbors, they're going to Walmart, their Kmart, and that would create substantial emotional distress. They probably now need to get in and start regulating Facebook, Match.com, because there is a lot of areas there that can really expose people, and it does create substantial emotional distress, and that needs to be regulated. I mean, ultimately, we have to protect the children. We also have to protect victims of domestic violence, and there are so many avenues and social medias out there that allow these people to abuse that process that the legislature has to expand the definition of domestic violence and encompass that. And actually what they're doing is they're creating more types of domestic violence petitions.
Regano is currently a member of the Florida Bar Family Law Section and Domestic Violence Committee. Now we turn to a local author who's proud of a lot of things, but not his past.
Growing up, Tony Gaskins Jr. witnessed physical violence and then went on to abuse his then-girlfriend. But he's turned his life around, becoming a strong advocate for all abused women. And Gaskins wrote a book called What Daddy Should Have Told His Little Girl. He hopes his message will make a difference, especially to other men who find themselves in abusive relationships.
Look inside of ourselves and ask us, what have I been through that could change the lives of those around me?
Tony Gaskins Jr., motivational speaker, best-selling author, proud father, and loving husband. But Tony has overcome many obstacles to get here. Growing up, he witnessed domestic abuse that he thought was a normal part of every household.
Just like two boys would fight in the schoolyard, I figured mothers and fathers fought in the home.
He saw it throughout his neighborhood and extended family.
Just seeing family members, whether it was cousins or aunts, living with black eyes and bruises and broken ribs. And I guess at a young age, it kind of was seen as a necessary evil, like a part of relationships or a part of love.
And the examples didn't end there. As a football player, Tony said his teammates would talk about treating their women violently, as if it was a rite of passage.
A lot of my teammates abused their girlfriends. The upperclassmen, you know, abused their girlfriends and would tell the freshmen and the sophomores like myself that they did it and this is what you have to do or this is what happens.
Eventually, Tony became an abuser himself, verbally abusing his ex-girlfriend, trying to control her, until it escalated into physical violence.
I never gave her a black eye, but yet it was still physical enough that it just, you know, it jars you. And afterwards, you sit and you like, what did I just do? What just happened? It could have ruined my life.
Tony realized the domestic abuse was a behavior and he had to change.
I looked in the mirror And I knew that I had been battling with this, being abusive, whether it be verbal or physical. And I knew that I was raised better than that. I knew that I wanted to be loved for who I was, not because of manipulation by guilt or coercion by fear. I wanted to be loved for Tony Gaskins. And I realized I had to become a man.
He eventually left that toxic relationship and began to study the Bible. As a son of a minister, Tony's father helped guide him through his Christian upbringing and his belief in the Lord.
And just reading and learning, okay, this is what love is. Corinthians 13, Ephesians 5, this is what love is. This is what it is to be a man, patient and temperate, understanding, giving, forgiving. That is when my life began to change. So what kind of test you got to turn in?
Soon after that, Tony met his wife, Cherie, and eventually had their son, Tony. But the changes and growth came slowly.
A man can't show a woman what he's never known. And that love is a learned behavior. So if you grow up learning that love is abuse, that's what you're going to give your partner. But when you learn that love is the complete opposite of abuse, and that love speaks his own languages and abuse isn't one of them, then that is when you begin to grow and become a better man.
Today, Tony tries to spread his knowledge, especially to men who are pro athletes or boys involved in local athletic programs.
Do you think it's possible for any abuser to change?
I do believe so. Any abuser. If you change the friends that you're around, if you change the examples that you're looking up to, then you change your life. So when you change, the things around you change.
And Tony warns women stuck in an abusive relationship, you must leave, because the violence will only get worse.
You'll be safer leaving than staying, because that's a lost and confused individual. And although he may seem big and bad and tough, he's really crying on the inside. He's really hurting. And you leaving not only will save yourself, but you can also save him. Either way, you could die. If you feel like he's crazy enough to kill you if you leave, then please know and believe that he's crazy enough to kill you if you stay.
Again, if you're just joining us, we will be showing you this number throughout our primetime special. The statewide hotline number is 1-800-500-1119. Just by calling, you will be linked to the nearest domestic violence center. The call remains anonymous and untraceable. The Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence supports 42 domestic violence centers, which provide shelter and support to survivors of domestic violence right here in Florida.
Here's a county-by-county look at the shelters in our area. The Spring of Tampa Bay is located in Hillsborough County. Casa and the Haven of RCS are in Pinellas. In Lake and Sumter counties, we have Haven. The Dawn Center is located in Hernando. The Salvation Army Domestic Violence Programs and the Sunrise of Pasco Shelter are in Pasco County. In Manatee, there's the Citrus Abuse Shelter Association, also known as CASA, and Hope Family Services. In Sarasota and DeSoto counties, there is Spark, and the Peace River Center serves Polk, Hardy, and Highlands. This primetime special is part of a station-wide initiative year-round on ABC Action News. This is year 2 of our Taking Action Against Domestic Violence campaign, and in interview after interview, victims and survivors have told us they didn't recognize the first signs of abuse. Here's a list of warning signs from experts at the Spring of Tampa Bay. A partner is exhibiting controlling behavior, stalking using electronic tracking devices, making incessant phone calls and texts, abusing drugs or alcohol, threatening to commit suicide or kill someone else, is hurting or has killed a family pet. Unfortunately, the warning signs aren't always obvious to the victim. That was the case with Audrey Mabrey. This local mother had separated from her husband in what she thought would be an amicable divorce. She was wrong. Her skin has been scarred for life, but not her fighting spirit. She is fighting to live a normal life with her 2 boys and to help other victims get out before it's too late. 27-year-old Audrey Mabrey made headlines last November when her estranged husband drenched her in lighter fluid and set her on fire.
The look in his eyes is something that I can't describe to you or anyone else. It's something I've never seen before.
The flames burned 80% of Audrey's body. The arrest of her husband, Christopher Haney, was broadcast on the evening news.
You were attempted murder in the first degree.
In an instant, Audrey became a public figure in the worst of ways. 4 months later, she is making the best of the role she did not ask for. She's speaking out to help other victims of domestic violence. Our cameras were there when Audrey met reality TV star Mary Murphy, flying in from California.
I've always had this energy about myself.
Murphy, a judge on the hit show So You Think You Can Dance, is also a survivor of domestic violence.
Well, I first heard about Audrey's story from a girlfriend of mine here in Tampa Bay area, Julie.
That friend is Julie Weintraub, local philanthropist and owner of the Gold and Diamond Source. Together, they hosted the Hands Across the Bay fundraiser on March 11th, raising more than $6,000 for Audrey and her 2 boys. While she's getting used to people staring, Audrey is not quite ready to show her face on TV. And so we hide it. No regrets, knowing that the power of her words is enough to save lives.
No woman deserves to be torn down the way that these abusers tear them down. And I think that they all need to find their inner strength to get up and leave. You may find yourself in a shelter, and you may think that that's not good enough. Why would I leave this beautiful home to go stay in a shelter with my kids? Your kids will thank you 10, 5, 15 years from now that you left that day.
Listening by her side, Murphy reaches out to Audrey, overcome with emotion. The TV celebrity and the local mom encouraging others to speak up in the face of abuse.
I say, is everything okay? Is there anything that I can do for you? If there's ever a time that you're in trouble, I want you to know you can call me day or night. I am there for you as a friend. And sometimes you need to hear that time and time again.
If you would like to help Audrey, visit the website handsacrossthebay.com. All donations go directly to Audrey and will help pay for her medical bills. There are resources available to help victims in the Tampa Bay area.
We've made it easy for you to find. Just go to abcactionnews.com/DV. There you'll find information on shelters, legal help, and programs that help victims and families. The Family Justice Center is just one resource in Tampa Bay that improves the lives of violence victims. There are nearly 40 private, public, and nonprofit agencies under one roof, all working together. Back in October of last year, the FJC launched a new program called the Electronic Safety Deposit Box. Executive Director Nikki Daniels explains how it works.
The idea of this is to give them safe ways to store their documents electronically. Let's use all this great technology that we have. So there are 2 ways they can do that. One is through a website, and we can scan, and they could do it themselves if they want to, but we can scan all that information in for them. It goes into these little file boxes in the electronic website that's password protected also. They have their own password. And then they can download from that anytime, print it all out. They can fax from there. So if an attorney needs a copy of divorce papers, they can just fax right from that account. The other option is just a basic flash drive. But with the flash drive, it's password protected. So even if the abuser finds it, they can't just open it up and see all of what's in there.
The Family Justice Center offers legal services, counseling, medical help, child care, and more. The main site is located on North Florida Avenue. To learn more about the services offered at the Family Justice Center, just go to fjchc.org.
There's a new nonprofit organization that helps domestic violence victims get injunctions for protection against their abuser. This organization was founded by someone you may remember from our 2009 campaign. Natalie Baron is a local attorney in Hillsborough County. She's also a survivor of domestic violence and shared her story with us last year. Now, Natalie and her husband, Corey, are the founders of a nonprofit organization called Are You Safe? We visited Natalie to learn more about how this program is helping victims.
Basically, the whole concept is to allow victims of domestic violence that are able to get a domestic violence injunction have representation when they go into the final hearing on the injunction. Being a survivor of domestic violence, 14 years ago, I filed a domestic violence injunction against my abuser. At the time, and I hate to say that it was fortunate for me at the time, I had a broken arm. I think if the judge hadn't seen that I had a broken arm, maybe things would have gone a different way.
If you're in need of representation, you can contact areyousafetampa@gmail.com. And to learn more about the program, you can also visit their website at areyoussafe.org.
The Florida Department of Law Enforcement has reported that crime is down, but domestic violence is up. According to the state's annual Uniform Crime Report for 2009, domestic violence murders are up 15.6%. DV manslaughter is up 71.4%, and 40% of all violent crimes were domestic violence related. Well, now we are going behind bars to show you a jailhouse classroom that's designed to educate and inform inmates about domestic violence. At the Pinellas County Jail on 49th Street, inmates are up before the sun. Monday through Saturday, 8 to 10 hours a day, they're in class. It's part of the county's Smart Choices program. ABC Action News allowed behind bars to witness the Batterers Intervention Program.
On a day when everything's nice.
Denise Hughes Conlon is the class instructor, a licensed mental health counselor and addictions professional. She moves through the classroom of inmates armed with a roll of stickers, 2 questions, and a fill-in-the-blank.
What part of the problem am I? And I blank because and what do I need to do differently?
Inmates may start off hesitant or just plain sleepy, but as the clock ticks, they learn.
Well, thanks for being honest.
Learn about self-control, problem-solving, communications, adding things like I questions and timeouts to their toolbox of life.
You gotta let her know that you're walking away. Don't walk away and leave the whole situation. Don't come back. You have to come back and try to solve it.
Excellent job. I'm impressed. Probably the biggest surprise, really, to be honest, is that they love their stickers. But I really just think that speaks to affirmation. They feel good when they've done something good. Unless I get this in my brain that this is a timeout.
Teaching for 10 years, she starts with the first signs of abuse. Conlon says if the person can see that moment as the beginning of the end for their family, there's hope.
If you ask somebody who's hit a woman an hour before if they think they're ever going to hit a woman, they're probably going to say no. But they're doing a lot of blaming, they're making everything her fault, and they need to hear that the name-calling, the blaming, can lead to physical abuse. And that's the piece that people don't usually understand or get.
The jailhouse program is 12 weeks.
I left hook Lacey.
The lessons, although humorous at times, are meant to produce serious change when inmates get home.
No, I never hit a girlfriend or nothing like that.
Like the majority of men in this room, Tori Mazurowski is not in jail for domestic violence. The class is open to all inmates, increasing the jail's chances of reaching anyone who may need it. And Tori says it works.
I would say yeah, because when they come in here, they learn a lot about themselves, and maybe that they probably think it's okay to hit their lady and stuff like that. But once they go through the class, she teaches them and tells them that it's, that's not the way to do it and it's not right.
Tori should know. He watched it happen to his own mom for years.
I can't stand it. I think that's not a real man, for one, because my mom, she got beat a lot and stuff like that, so really I cannot stand it one bit. There's really no excuse for a man hitting a woman.
Here's another look at the statewide domestic violence hotline. It's 1-800-500-1119. The hotline connects you to local advocates who are standing by to help, whether you need to go to a shelter or just someone to talk to. The call is anonymous and cannot be traced back to the hotline for your own safety.
Still ahead on taking action against domestic violence, Prime Time.
He could end up being the nicest person in the world that ends up killing you.
A Plant City woman survives years of abuse at the hands of her partner. We'll show you how she's making a difference in the lives of other women in need. Plus this.
For many young victims of domestic violence, school can be a lonely and isolating place. Often they feel trapped by secrets. I'm Linda Rotato in Pinellas County, and I'm going to introduce you to a woman who's made it her life's mission to free those kids. I'll show you how she's doing it, coming up.
We're back after these messages.
Hello, my name is Will Allen of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Did you know that boys who witness domestic violence are twice as likely to become the abuser when they get older? Remember, when we choose not to speak up against domestic violence, we are supporting it. Stand up and speak out. You're watching Taking Action Against Domestic Violence Prime Time.
My name's Natalie Baron, and I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I was a victim of domestic violence about 12 years ago. I was educated, I had a degree, I had a great career. It started with throwing of a pillow. I didn't think anything of that. I didn't think that was domestic violence. The next time he prevented me from leaving the house, took my keys, and When he was taking my keys, it actually scratched my arm. I still have a scar today because it was pretty deep. Still didn't think that was domestic violence, but I knew something was wrong. The last time that he abused me, he broke my arm. And when it happened, I couldn't believe it happened. I was ashamed. With my parents' assistance, I finally reached out for help. And now I'm a thriver. Now I'm able to live again, I'm able to feel safe again, and I'm able to grow. We, as a people, have a responsibility to protect those that are being abused.
By donating your old cell phone to the Verizon Wireless Hopeline program, you can provide a lifeline for survivors of domestic violence. More than $1.5 million in cash grants from donated phones were given to nearly 350 different domestic violence prevention and awareness programs nationwide. Nearly 21,000 Hopeline phones with service were activated nationwide at the end of 2008. Verizon Wireless has been dedicated to the awareness and prevention of this destructive social issue for more than a decade, making a difference for women in every community. Donate your phone at any Verizon Wireless retail store or visit verizonwireless.com/hopeline to help. And if you or someone you know is faced with an abusive situation, please call Florida's toll-free domestic violence hotline at 1-800-500-1119 today.
Taking action against domestic violence on your ABC Action News station is brought to you by Verizon Wireless and the Allstate Foundation.
What can men do to stop the cycle of abuse? The Call to Men is a national organization working to stop domestic violence. The Call to Men's top 5 things men can do to take a stand against domestic violence. Number 1, speak up. Take a stand against domestic violence. Number 2, our silence is affirming. When we choose not to speak up about domestic violence, we're supporting it.
Number 3, talk to your son, nephew, and other young men about our responsibility in preventing domestic violence.
Number 4, accept our own responsibility that domestic violence will not end until men become part of the solution to end it.
Number 5, there is no excuse for domestic violence. It is not due to mental illness or anger issues.
Hi, I'm Joanne Leiter, President and CEO of the Spring of Tampa Bay. How can you help victims of domestic violence? You can do something as simple as visiting our thrift operation at Simply Spring or the Vintage Boutique or our warehouse on Willow. For more information, you can go to thespring.org. Those proceeds all help victims of domestic violence. You're watching Taking Action Against Domestic Violence Primetime.
Welcome back and thanks for joining us tonight. Domestic violence hurts everyone in the family, not just the abuser's target victim, and the effects can span generations.
Many times children suffer the most when a home is broken by abuse. Behind us, you will notice pictures of some of our survivors who are openly sharing their personal stories with us tonight.
That's right. We also enlarged hand paintings from children who are living in Tampa Bay shelters right now. Again, we'll be showing the statewide domestic violence hotline throughout our 1-hour special. That number is 1-800-500-1119. Trained counselors are standing by to help. Even if no one lays a hand on you, simply witnessing domestic violence can be a searing, life-altering experience, especially for a child. Studies show children exposed to violence in the home are much more likely to become abusers or to be abused. Early counseling is critically important to these kids. That's why we want you to meet a young man in St. Petersburg doing some remarkable work with children displaced by domestic violence.
We'd like to show you their faces, but feet and hands will have to do. They are, after all, each being sheltered from an abuser. And though their identities are hidden for their own security, it's here, in these meetings, that secret feelings and fears are shared.
When I feel like I can't talk to no one, I can just write about it, and I feel like a whole lot better, and I don't be as stressful and just angry a lot.
What our focus is to give them an opportunity to bring it to the surface, to share and to express and find healthy ways to work through what emotions may be rising in them from the experience.
Youth advocate Ricky Roberts tries to create a trusting environment where children from abusive homes can help each other.
It's a way to get out your feelings and interact with other people who's in the same situation, and you don't have to be embarrassed about it because people have been in, if not the same situation, something close.
These twice-monthly meetings are held in a daycare center, at an undisclosed location in St. Petersburg, and it was here that teachers identified the need for these children to have some outlet, some way of talking about what they've been through.
Oh, the difference I saw was amazing.
Charlene Cook supervises the CASA Daycare Center and believes lives are being changed in those meetings.
Two of the kids one day were talking about hitting women and things like that, and one of the boys said, "I don't ever want to hit a woman," and the other little girl said, "You know what, you'll never do that because you're a really good person." I would have never heard that before that group.
Think about how that cycle needs to stop. And
you might be surprised to learn that Roberts is not a licensed or even formally trained counselor. He is an author of 3 books who brings the experience of his own troubled childhood to his work.
My father was abusive to my mother, and I witnessed that abuse. You know, he struggled and had challenges with alcohol abuse and then drug abuse, which was an addiction to crack cocaine.
That experience turned Ricky into an angry young man, quick to fight. Until one night, at the age of 17, he got into a particularly vicious street brawl in Ybor City.
And it resulted in me being in the hospital with 9 stab wounds. I was there for a week and a half, and that time I was just reflecting on my life and looking back on everything I experienced and started to ask, like, what can I do with all this?
The answer was this: to help children from troubled homes break the cycle of violence and imagine brighter futures for themselves.
I just don't want to have to struggle. I want to have my own money and have to depend on only me, have a good job, all that.
Thank you.
But even now, they can find something positive in the family crisis that led them to CASA in the first place.
What good came out of it was meeting all these people here and moving into another home and just my mom being happy and everyone else being happy around her.
Ricky Roberts takes pride in those kinds of statements, but realizes that recovery for these young people will be a lifelong process.
You know, I'll never claim to understand them. I'll never claim to know exactly what they're going through, but I will share the things that have helped me get past some of the things I've faced as a person who's witnessed domestic violence.
If you'd like to learn more about the programs at CASA, just go to casa-stpete.org.
Now we'd like you to meet a Bay Area woman who's taking action for kids. She takes her compelling message right to the children she hopes to save from domestic violence. Our Linda Hurtado introduces us to Elaine Carroll, an advocate in action.
Elaine is on a mission to earn the trust of these students.
We all keep secrets. Maybe you're keeping a secret right now.
And empower them to speak. She begins with the tale of an adopted girl and a father who crossed the line.
This is where Carol's life made a horrific change. She was hurt in a way that no child should ever be hurt.
She tells them for 10 years, Carol suffered routine rape and never told a soul, silenced by the threat of domestic violence.
Carol would be in the room with her mom. He'd walk up to Carol, give her a very scary look, go over to her mother and punch her or slap her.
Elaine knew the slew of reactions would only intensify when she revealed her own secret.
If you have not figured this out already, Carol is me.
Wow. Elaine believes that in every class she speaks to, there is a potential victim, and she knows how hard it will be for the victim to reach out and grab her helping hand. Because as a teen, Elaine too fiercely guarded that secret.
It's actually making me sick thinking about this. Like I said, walking past this house, I have not done this.
As a child living in this Largo neighborhood, Elaine worked every day to keep up appearances.
People saw this happy family, you know, going to the Sunday school. I was going to Sunday school. We did the church. We did family vacations.
But when the sun went down, Elaine says her adopted father did unspeakable things.
I remember feeling shag carpet against my body, and it was a green shag carpet. I remember what it was like to feel tears running into the side of my ears, just filling up. I remember after it was over, feeling a warm washcloth washing my areas, redressing me, putting me to bed, kissing me on the forehead and telling me I was a good girl and sweet dreams.
Her nightmare continued until at 17 her mom and dad divorced.
That was the happiest day of my life. And at that point I thought, why tell anybody now?
But years later, a Largo police detective showed up at her door. Her adopted dad had been charged with molesting kids in another Tampa Bay neighborhood, and parents there were outraged.
He was following our kids to school. We had to start driving them to school. Nobody played on the street.
That case eventually was not prosecuted, which caused the parents concern, and they came to the police department asking if we could look further into Roger's background.
I wanted nothing to do with this case. I thought, you know what? These kids had one day of this. I was molested for 10 years and I got over it and moved on. They'll be fine.
Then neighbor Jackie Wallenberg convinced Elaine to meet her and her daughter.
But the minute I met her daughter, I thought, no, this isn't right. I have to stick to this. I can't back out. I can't let my fears get the better of me.
You would not believe the stuff that I can remember.
Detective Short taped 2 phone calls Elaine made to her dad.
I what you're saying, but I wasn't there.
Those calls and Elaine's testimony during his trial put him away for 25 years. Elaine became this neighborhood's hero. Was it like the sun came up again?
Yeah. The kids came out and played. Yeah, the kids came out.
Yes, the kids did come out to play again, but that wasn't enough for Elaine. She wrote a book about the abuse, but still felt driven to take further action to help other voiceless kids, like the little kid she used to be.
And then I started remembering when I was a child and I was at school, somebody didn't help me the way I wanted help.
Elaine recalls sitting in a similar classroom listening to a guest speaker who asked for questions on a 3x5 index card.
I wrote down on the card, "My father is raping me every night, can you help me?" And I'm listening to the questions being read and they're like, do I kiss on the first date? And I thought, you know what, this lady isn't going to know what to do. She's not going to be able to help me.
Elaine ripped up that card and trashed it as she left class.
That has stayed with me forever.
On this day at a Pinellas County high school, when the bell rang and the students shuffled out one by one, a heavy-hearted girl stayed behind and reached for Elaine's strong hand.
I've been keeping it inside so long that it's been just... I can't express myself the way I used to be able to before everything happened. And it's been eating me inside, and it hurts so bad.
This 16-year-old, who along with her mother gave us permission to share her story, says she too was molested by a father-like figure. We have chosen not to identify her out of respect for her privacy. Did Elaine give you the courage maybe to speak out?
Yes.
When you were listening to her, what were you thinking?
It gave me flashbacks of what happened.
And that's why I called your number.
Flash forward, and there should be no more need for silence. The teen's teacher got on the phone and reported the abuse, while Elaine cradled her in reassuring arms and whispered in her ear.
The important thing is to realize you did absolutely nothing wrong, ever. Don't ever second-guess yourself, okay?
In the 2 years since Elaine has been speaking in front of classes like this in Pinellas County, 39 kids have come forward to report rape or abuse. And she has a message for those of you that she can't speak to in person. You are worth saving. And the first step towards survival is finding the courage to ask for help. In Pinellas County, Linda Hurtado, ABC Action News.
The Tampa Police Department is investigating this teenager's claims. As for Elaine Carroll, she's written a book about what happened to her as a child. It's called Stolen Innocence. If you'd like to learn more about it, go to abcactionnews.com/DV.
Our next survivor knows firsthand the pain that children endure when violence lives and breathes within the home. David Broughton suffered through years of abuse as a child, but now he's helping others find hope and healing. David Broughton arrives at work each day ready for miracles, and with good reason. 158,000 people got help here last year, all under one roof, the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay.
And she needs to come off the drugs?
There's a hotline operator talking someone out of suicide, the nurse tending to a rape victim, the counselor restoring a child's sense of safety and hope.
Every one of them is a story, you know, and it's a story in many cases about human courage and the indomitability of the human spirit, and what a little bit of help, you know, can do to help people, you know, to get people back on their feet.
Broughton has been the president of the Crisis Center since 2007. He's a familiar face in the community, respected advocate, great husband and dad. No accident for the boy who grew up with domestic violence and vowed never to repeat it.
Mom used to say to friends that, you know, I have to give David a spanking every week just to keep him in line.
The beatings, both physical and verbal, came from Mom, not Dad.
In my house, a spanking wasn't just a swat on the butt. You know, it was a belt with a bare bottom. And one of the things that I never ever did, you know, no matter what happened, no matter, you know, whether my mom was flailing on me or my brother or whatever, we never ever struck back, because The one thing my dad taught me is you just don't hit women.
Growing up, what David didn't know was that his mom had been a victim too, abused by a stepfather. It's a secret that she kept for most of her life. Fritzy Broughton died 14 years ago, and it's been even longer than that since she made the revelation to her son. But David still remembers that day, that talk, that pain.
But you know, she I'm sorry. You know, that was I think that was the beginning of my own personal healing, and it also, you know, brought, you know, me face to face with the fact that oftentimes those people that we blame, you know, there's some story behind them, and maybe they're just doing the best they can with what they have to work with, and that doesn't excuse what they do, but it explains it. I was very blessed to have a lot of other people in my life, you know, a grandma and a grandpa and other adults who constantly affirmed that I was of value, that I was of worth. You know, because I didn't believe that.
That presence of loving adults, grandparents, school teachers, mentors, built David's confidence over the years and his self-esteem.
I've learned along the way, you know, that every child has almost an instinctual desire, just this compelling desire to do, you know, to be good. And if adults can recognize that, you know, no matter what the behavior is, and redirect that, and affirm that child as being of worth and value, of being important in this world, no matter what else is going on, then I think the child reaches a different conclusion.
The conclusion that no one is born programmed to abuse or is stuck in the cycle of domestic violence. David is living proof. Determined to help men following in their abusers' footsteps, he's formed Men Stopping Violence Against Women, hoping to lead them on a different path.
You're not going to play golf with me. You're not going to sit next to me in church. You know, you're not going to be one of the guys that I go out and socialize with. You know, we're going to ostracize you until you earn your way back in. My guess is if we, as the stand-up guys, did that, you know, this problem would disappear in pretty short order.
Counselors and nurses at the Crisis Center are relentless in their efforts to rebuild kids' self-esteem and their sense of safety.
It's true. They also teach the children non-abusive ways parents should behave with each other.
As you can imagine, it's a delicate process when it comes to helping kids who are victims of abuse.
The child meets with the same crisis counselor for about 3 months, and in many cases, the entire family comes in for therapy together.
A good way to stop the whole cycle is to go ahead and, you know, admit that there's a problem and get some kind of therapy for it. And it's amazing. I mean, we can teach families how to do continue therapy at home, working in different ways with the children, and it's amazing. It really, we've seen a lot of miracles.
The Crisis Center offers specialized intervention and treatment services for children and adults who've experienced sexual, physical, or emotional abuse. For more information on the Crisis Center's services, visit crisiscenter.com, or you can call 211 for help.
Law enforcement officers are also playing a significant role helping victims of domestic violence.
Oftentimes, they are the first responders to cases reported by either the victim, family members, or neighbors. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office released these statistics just last year. 4,395 domestic violence incident reports were filed. Also in 2009, Hillsborough County reported 5 domestic violence murders.
According to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, there were 2,765 reported cases of domestic violence last year, and 2 people died as a result of domestic violence murders.
Our next survivor lived through 10 years of domestic violence at the hands of her husband. And Jennifer Jones Gray witnessed verbal and physical abuse in her own family for years. And the abuse goes back 4 generations. Jennifer's mother, grandmother, and even great-grandmother all married men who abused them. Jennifer Jones Gray was born in Plant City, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, adorable little girl. As a teenager, she performed as a majorette at Plant City High School and grew up to become a beautiful woman. But her adult life has been filled with pain.
You might think he's the nicest person in the world, and he could end up being the nicest person in the world that ends up killing you.
Jennifer is still haunted by the memories of an abusive husband, abuse she endured for over 10 years.
I'm sorry. it brought it to the surface. And I think there's so many people out there that they're like, I can fix it. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Thank God I have no children.
Jennifer says her husband began verbally abusing her right after they got married, and it intensified over time.
And at the end, it got physical, where he was choking me, pushing me, stopping the truck, telling me to get out and walk.
The night she left, she says her husband came home drunk and was so violent she was terrified for her life.
And I know that if I would have stayed, even as tough as I think I am, I probably would have either been hospitalized or he would have killed me.
Jennifer finally found safety coming home to her mother.
I'm very, very thankful for my mom.
But Jennifer's mother, Karen, knew all too well what her daughter was going through. She, too, married an abusive man and grew up around abuse as a child.
A little girl, you start to think it's normal. Yeah, that's the norm. Crazy. It's hard to break the pattern.
And there have been 4 generations of patterns to break. Jennifer's grandmother and even great-grandmother all married men who were verbally and physically abusive. Still, Jennifer could not break the cycle.
Listening to the stories that, oh no, I'll never let myself get in that position, ever. And I did.
Today, both these women are survivors and help each other heal. And Jennifer tries to give back.
Scope, little lip balm.
As an international flight attendant, she keeps the extra airline amenity kits passengers throw away.
A lot of people will take like the toothbrush out, use that, and the rest of the amenity kit is thrown in the garbage. So I collect them.
Jennifer adds whatever necessities are missing and has already donated about 75 kits to the Haven Women's Shelter. And she has some advice for other abused women still afraid to leave.
Don't stay in something that is never going to get better. And you know you've stayed too long if it's just getting worse and worse and worse, because it will escalate to a point that either someone is so physically hurt and abused or killed.
If you're a victim of domestic violence or know someone who is, call the statewide domestic violence hotline at 1-800-500-1119. You can remain anonymous, and it's a call that could save your life. We'll be right back, right after these messages.
Hi, I'm Nikki Daniels. I'm Executive Director of the Family Justice Center here in Hillsborough County. Did you know that the Family Justice Center has the staff from 27 different agencies all here in one site, ready to work as a team to assist victims of domestic violence?
Hi, I'm Sheldon Quarles.
And I'm Ryan East. We're former Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Domestic violence can happen when you least expect it.
Talk to your daughters today to keep them from becoming victims tomorrow.
Show your sons the right way to treat others.
Join the team, taking action against domestic violence.
I'm Allstate Agent Bill Grodman. Domestic violence poses a threat to the safety and security of victims and their families across the United States. Nearly 1 in 4 women report being abused by husbands or partners during their lifetimes. Economic control is commonly used by abusers to prevent their victims from leaving abusive situations. Victims of domestic violence need strategies to help them deal with their financial struggles and plan for safe, secure futures. The Allstate Foundation is providing a comprehensive network of services for domestic violence survivors and advocates, including providing programming and funding support for direct services, supporting domestic violence advocates and service providers, and creating a national effort to raise awareness about domestic violence. To learn more about the Allstate Foundation's Economics Against Abuse program, visit click2empower.org.
Taking action against domestic violence on your ABC Action News station is brought to you by Verizon Wireless and the Allstate Foundation.
Hi, I'm Joy Kruppel with Peace River Center, helping victims in Polk County. Donations are accepted during business hours, and we're always looking for volunteers.
Hi, I'm Ryan Neese, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer and founder of the Ryan Neese Foundation. Did you know that 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence? That woman could be your mother, your sister, or your daughter.
The time is now. Join the team taking action against domestic violence.
Welcome back, everybody. A study by the U.S. Justice Department revealed that African American women are more affected by domestic violence than women in any other race. Ardea Riley takes us to St. Petersburg, where advocates in action are working hard to change that statistic.
We're just going to put this on cool.
Silver Lining, how may I help you?
At the Silver Lining Beauty Center in St. Petersburg, you can get a cut and color while you get caught up on the latest gossip.
I have to call you back.
It's no secret that African American women spend a lot of time in the hair salon. And for many, it's the perfect place to get to the root of some dark issues.
One of the things that we hear in the African American community is what goes on in this house stays here.
Crystal McFadden is a community outreach advocate for CASA, Community Action Stops Abuse. She heads up a program called Cut Out Domestic Violence. It's aimed at black hair salons, training stylists to spot the signs of abuse that speak loud and clear, even when a victim won't.
The hair salon is one of the places they oftentimes can frequent by themselves. They have a good rapport with the person who's doing it, with their stylist, and oftentimes they open up.
Amber Shepard is a stylist here. She shares some of the subtle signs that signal something at home isn't quite right.
Bruises on the neck, maybe bruises and abrasions in the scalp, cuts in the hair, broken fingernails, constantly blowing up her cell phone, being very controlling, wanting her hair a certain way, wanting her hair cut a certain way, or coloring it a certain way.
CASA wants to make it clear these stylists are not being trained as counselors. They're simply being encouraged to get their clients who may be victims of domestic abuse to open up and possibly seek professional help.
African American women do suffer at a higher rate, around 35%. They die at the hands of their abusers higher than any other race.
Dia Riley, ABC Action News.
We thank you so much for watching and send special thanks to all the survivors who shared their personal stories with us tonight. For all of us here at ABC Action News, taking action against domestic violence extends beyond this primetime special.
And we hope that if any of you watching at home tonight have been victimized, the information and stories you've heard in this hour will inspire you to take that first step and get help.
Long after tonight's program is over, we are committed to making a difference in our community. In March, the Scripps Howard Foundation, which is part of our parent company, donated $5,000 to the statewide domestic violence hotline. That totals $10,000 in community grants to the hotline since 2009. If you're a victim of domestic violence or know someone who is, please call 1-800-500-1119.
We introduced you to Vanessa during last year's special. Her mother, Gloria Fix, was murdered by her husband. Well, tonight you're about to meet Vanessa's aunt and cousin who've written a song in tribute to Gloria, and they're dedicating it to all the victims of domestic violence. Together, we can break the cycle of abuse.
I'd like to dedicate this song to my sister Gloria, who was a victim of domestic violence.
Hold my hand, I'll take you far out to the promised land, free from violence. Trust in me, believe in yourself, plant the seed.
How can you help victims in our community become safe? You can give money. There are lots of organizations within our community that need monies in order to operate and help protect victims and make sure that they're safe.
You know, abuse goes on in our community all the time, abuse of women and children. There's nothing manly about abusing a woman or a child. And if you see that happening, you can put a stop to it by just speaking up.
Brave girl, please comprehend. You are the strong stop the silence.
Even though it was so tragic what happened to my mother, I look at her as a hero because she died. She died to save her kids.
I'm Pam Tope, Florida Region President with Verizon Wireless. 1 in 4 women is affected by domestic violence. It affects them, their children, and the communities in which we live. You can help break this cycle by donating your old cell phone to the Verizon Wireless Hope Line program, which works to give these women a lifeline of support. To find out more, visit verizonwireless.com/hopeline.
I'm Allstate agent Karen Hilton.
And I'm Janelle Cavendish from Allstate.
If you or someone you know is leaving an abusive situation, it is important to protect your financial information.
To secure this information,
get a post office box.
Add passwords to your utility accounts.
Change banking passwords and PINs.
Remove your abuser as a beneficiary from your insurance plans.
Call the statewide domestic violence hotline at 1-800-500-1119 for more information.
The surprising place teens are finding their drug fix at 11.
Previously on Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution. The revolution has been a success.
Give it some style. Come on.
But it encountered the biggest obstacle yet.
We are going to need to train our cooks. I don't have a clue who would be willing to give us money.
And there was only one solution.
Doug Shields, he's the guy that could pay for every single school in this district.
So Jamie had to prove that his revolution in schools,
oh, for God's sake,
worked.
I want to change. Jamie's got some good ideas.
But after he leaves Huntington on its own, the food revolution falls apart.
I've been promised in America, if Huntington can change, anywhere can change. But there's some stuff going wrong.
And Jamie must come back.
Nightmare, absolute nightmare.
It's Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution.
Eat your vegetables!